You're listening to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the hottest new podcast network and YouTube channel in the UK, featuring original series, top guests, expert analysts, and more. Check out facebook.com/AceCast Nation for news on latest guests and shows. Watch every show in full at youtube.com/ACE Podcast Nation.
I'm Ben Ellis, Cage Warriors Featherweight. Check out and subscribe to A.C.E Podcast Nation on YouTube for one of the best fight podcasts around, and the Danny Batten Fight Show every Wednesday for all MMA news.
Defending champion, welcome, Danny Batten!
Hey guys, I'm Sai and welcome to A.C.E Podcast Nation, the home of the Danny Batten Fight Show. This is episode number 62 and we're going to be talking to our very special guest, plus a bit of latest news and of course last night's return of the UFC. We'll be talking the main card, fight by fight, as well as some MMA news and Paige Van Zandt's bare knuckle boxing debut, which was interesting to say the least. But with no further ado, I'll introduce my my co-host and my guest in just a second. But if you'd like to watch this series or all the other series that we do on the channel, you can subscribe, youtube.com/ACE Podcast Nation on YouTube. Click the bell, get notifications every time we go live or upload a show. And of course, you can get the audio versions of everything at your usual podcast platforms and apps. Just search ACE Podcast Nation, and all the different series are there. There's like 300 and something episodes. There's a lot of different series and shows for you to check out. But as mentioned, my co-host, former Cage Warriors champion, UK MMA legend, it is Mr. Danny Batten. How goes it, my friend?
Yeah, it's all good. Right, Arnold. What a good weekend. Extra treat having Arnold on. This is great. I've never had the chance to speak to him face to face in person, let alone on a podcast like this. So yeah, really excited about this weekend.
Yeah, it's always good, mate, when the UFC's back as well. Gives us that extra bit of stuff to talk about. And there was some good fights last night, so I'm looking forward to having a little chat about. But before we get there, we are delighted to be joined by number 9 ranked featherweight in the world. It is UFC star, Mr. Arnold Allen. Allen, how are you, mate?
Good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm all good, mate. It's a weird one for us because we normally record like in the evenings, and we're all a bit disjointed because we're in obviously you're in America, so we wanted to. Yeah, no, we just wanted to. We wanted to. We're happy to rearrange, and because we're talking to people from all over the globe. So it's just, we'll do what it is for anyone. But delighted to have you, mate. How's it been the last sort of year or so? Obviously, you're over in the States, but
I'm in Canada in a minute.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, I'm up in Montreal.
Nice. For me, like having not been to either place, that I automatically think, oh, that's cool. I'd rather be in Canada, but I don't know what it's like for you. Like, it's weird because it's been a strange sort of 12 months or so. Obviously, we're in the UK. We've been in lockdown since before Christmas. Very restricted. What's it like where you are at the moment?
Yeah, pretty much the same. It's there's lockdowns, there's curfews. You have to be home by 8, but you get fined and all that sort of business. So it's a little bit stricter. Everything's shut. The gyms are all shut, but we're making the most
of it, I suppose. What's it been like from a training perspective, like over the last year or so?
Yeah, it's been on and off because for the first period of like the lockdown and the pandemic, we kind of didn't know what was going on, so people weren't training. I was sort of doing my own thing for 6 weeks, and then sort of made a little underground training. A group of us getting together somewhere and a sort of unknown location and doing some training. So yeah, it's got to sort of got to make it work, haven't we? So.
Yeah, I mean, you had a fight scheduled against Jeremy Stephens in November, which was unfortunately it was cancelled because I think he had an injury, didn't he?
Yeah.
That must have been disappointing to obviously go through the difficulties of training through lockdown and stuff like that to have the fight then sort of binned off. Was there any talk of a replacement fight, or was it kind of once it was off, it was done?
Yeah, there was like a couple options and stuff, but at that point we wanted like top 10, top 15, and I didn't want to just take a last minute replacement for like any sake of it. So we're in obviously, other than waiting a year and being out for so long, we're in a good position at the minute. So like I don't want to just take a pointless risk last minute for nothing, just for the sake of having a fight.
Yeah, you've obviously Dan, like Arnold's worked his way up into 9th in the rankings. You can kind of understand not wanting to take a last minute fight against almost like a mystery opponent at the last minute when, you know, Jeremy Stephens is a big name as well, isn't he?
Yeah, that's it. And that was the fight I wanted, to put my name out there, and, you know, the guy I was visualising, and when I'm doing my sort of meditation in the mornings, that was the next step I was looking at, like taking out someone like that. And that's what I wanted. But obviously, you don't always get what you want.
No, there's been some, you know, that featherweight division is stacked. Danny, obviously we've seen some big fights in that division of late. Obviously, we had Max Holloway returning back to form. Who would you like to see Arnold go up against in the future? Obviously, above him you've got Jeremy Stephens, you've got Josh Emmett, Calvin Kattar. Who else we got? Yair Rodriguez. You got Zabit. Anyone in there? Brian Ortega, Max Holloway, right at the top. Anyone in there, Danny? Which kind of you'd think straight away that's the fight I'd like to see?
To be honest, I think, you know, he's reached the sort of levels where any of those guys are sort of like legit for him to fight. I just would like to see him get anything that's approaching towards the top 5. To be honest, you know, I think he's definitely served his dues and shown that he's legit at the highest order. He's got a fantastic record coming into UFC, really has. So, yeah, I think once you get to that sort of top 10, I think you're setting yourself up in a position to take on anyone in that division. So, yeah, no one really stylistically, or, you know, like you say, it's such a stacked division. It really, really is. But yeah, just because of the situation sort of like we're in, I wouldn't like to see him fight someone out that top 10 now. That just would not make sense to me. Like maybe, you know, get that Jeremy Stephens fight back on. You know, perhaps that would be a good thing. But, you know, you haven't fought since January. Is this something that plays on your mind? I've noticed throughout your career there has been odd spells where you've only had one fight per year. Is that something that's led to any rust feelings when you step back in, when it's been a bit of a layoff like that?
No, I've never really had that feeling. But yeah, I like to fight and I like to be active and all that. And I train like I'm in camp all year round. And I've been pretty fortunate with injuries and that sort of stuff. I haven't had too many bad injuries. Just a little bit of bad luck here and there with the fights and that. Because I'm in the gym all year, I never really think about the ring rust or anything. I think that comes from people, you know, they're not fighting for a year, so then they're not training half of that year. You know what I mean? They're not living the lifestyle. They're sort of doing their thing, having the odd beer here and there at night. You know, I'm living like I'm in camp all year, so yeah. Right. Especially when it's like right now.
Sure. It's interesting actually. You say about like that you're always in camp all year round, because, you know, I've been coaching for about 20 years now, and I've come across very different characters. And certainly when pros become more established, you can notice a pattern with certain pros that they come back on the scene real heavy during a fight camp and can sort of disappear, sort of thing. Are you definitely one of those? Would you suggest that you're definitely one of those lifestyle guys that, you know, you're in your absolute prime at the moment, aren't you, for a good number of years from now onwards? Would you say this is just a complete lifestyle for you?
That's exactly it. And being out here in Canada, obviously, I'm like, there's no messing about. I'm in the gym or I'm at home, you know what I mean? So there's no. I'm living like a monk's lifestyle. I'm going to the gym, coming home. Yeah. And it's all about getting better and being ready. I always said before I was in the top 10, I want to be ready for the top 5. You know, like before I'm in the top 15, I want to be ready for the top 10. So I'm trying to improve always. So.
And how is it you ended up getting out towards Canada for training? Was this something that was planned with your original coaches? How's this all materialised?
Just so Tom Breeze and Joe Duffy were out here when I came out here, and I kind of knew them a little. So then I knew I wanted to go somewhere because I won my debut. I won a bonus, and I always said I want to go to one of the big gyms, the big up. But I ended up coming here first, and I never went anywhere else, to be honest. I just I'm gonna try all the gyms out and sort of see what I like. And because I had a sort of mutual friend over here in Duffy and Breeze, so I was like, I'll just come over there and never went anywhere else.
Yeah, and I'm kind of curious to know. I mean, I've had students of mine go stateside to train, but never in Canada. Is it, what's the difference in their training? What's the temptation for you to train out there rather than being, say, back in the UK and stuff like that? Yeah. What's the difference? Would you suggest? I
just like the way like Fraz operates. Like working with him, just like his strategy is so good. The way when it comes to like looking at a fight and his game planning and breaking things down, it's I haven't worked with anyone that sort of breaks a fight down like that, and like he just looks at it in a different way. I hardly watch tape on opponents and stuff now because he just watches it and tells me something I didn't even see. So yeah, and also the big thing here from obviously not now during the pandemic, but before there was always top level guys coming in from the US, there was top coaches coming in, there was always people flying in every other week to come train for 2-3 weeks, like there was always a different look and ahead of the curve sparring and like, people from this place bringing this technique over that I've never seen before. The guys from Danaher's, like all the jiu-jitsu guys are coming up. People spend 2 weeks in New York, come back, and we drill all those things. So it's just sort of like being ahead of the times a little bit with that stuff.
Sounds like training heaven.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's I guess as well when you're out in the Canada or the US, there's a lot of different places where you can go training. There's a lot of top level guys within almost touching distance that you can spar with. You can bring in, you can go there, or they can come to you. So that's going to make a massive difference to your development and stuff. And obviously, like we mentioned, the Jeremy Stephens fight was off in November. There's been a lot of rumours online and social media that you've got a fight coming up in April, although it's not officially announced. And there's been a couple of different names mentioned. I think obviously Stephens being one of them, and Sadiq Youssef, who is ranked 10, so obviously right below you. What are you thinking in terms of if the fight in April comes about? Do you feel ready, and are you looking to make some sort of like a big statement in terms of going forward?
Yeah, definitely. At this point, it's all about making that statement and breaking through and like the prospect or all hype or whatever, and becoming like solidified in the division. And then make a claim for top 5 or something. Make a push towards that. I've won 7 on the bounce now in the UFC, so. Yeah, I need to make a point and sort of stamp my position.
Yeah, there's not many guys within the UFC who've got a win streak that you'd like to the equivalent of what you've got. So I think, and I was saying to Danny just before the show, like I feel like yourself and Leon Edwards, who are in the top 10 rankings of your particular divisions, almost don't get the attention or the credit perhaps that you deserve for being in there. I don't know whether it's because you're kind of British guys in a predominantly US based company or what, and the media tend to focus on the other guys. It's a strange one, but like Danny, obviously we've talked about Leon not probably getting the credit which he deserves in terms of where he is in the rankings. Do you feel like the same about Arnold a little bit? Like he's kind of worked his way up to number 9 in the rankings, but maybe doesn't get his name out there, or not his name out there, but maybe people aren't giving him the credit that he deserves as such.
Yeah, it's a hard one to get my head around. I mean, we can only really surmise the reasons, but it does seem to feel that way. I just think unless you're going to be one of those fighters that are really brash and you say sort of things that are a little bit off the cuff to create aggravation in your opponent, and it sort of like creates attention that way around. I think for the really professional ones that just want to let their performance do the speaking, so to speak, do kind of get left on the sidelines a little bit. But it's also part of this, well, that featherweight is such a stacked division, and you do get different divisions where they become more stacked than others over the course of time. But the featherweights really, really are super stacked. So whether it's just because there's been so many interesting matchups at featherweight, maybe that's just making a few of the people get a little bit overlooked. I don't know, but look, he's quietly been moving himself up those ranks, quietly been gaining that sort of experience to set him up ready to break into that potential top 5. So sometimes I don't think it's a bad thing. I think with Arnold's particular career, maybe it's gone a little bit under the radar because of, on some of the times he's only having 1 or 2 fights per year. So again, that kind of keeps you out of the continuing speaking light, if you know what I mean. I don't know. We can only guess really at it, but I don't think it served as a bad thing because Arnold's so young. You're 27, 28, something like that. Yeah, I mean, this is incredible when you think the kind of experience that you've got at such a young age, and this is something that we've mentioned about numerous times, haven't we, Si, on the podcast with Jack Shaw and people like that. And we talked to Jack Hadley, who's got 2 titles in a pretty young career. When you think he's 8-0 now, already picked up 2 titles. It's incredible. But yeah, you've been in UFC for a few years now and got an incredible record considering you're fighting in the #1 promotion. Is it sort of like more comfortable for you sitting under the radar, or do you feel like it might put pressure on you if you was thrust into the limelight and everything you see is with you mentioned in it? Do you think it make a difference for you?
No, I don't think it make a difference for me, to be fair, but I do like it this way, like going under the radar and sort of chipping away, doing my thing in the background, getting there slowly and quietly. But but at the same time, if you're in the limelight and you're making noise, you're not going to be waiting. You're going to be getting offers to fight. You're going to be getting. They want you back, So eventually, I'm going to have to start because I don't want to be waiting my whole career on the sideline. So yeah,
of course.
But also think in a way as well, the delays and the long layoffs or whatever have been a blessing in a way because I signed with the UFC when I was 21, and I took little gaps between fights to improve. So I slowly made sure like I'm ready for that next level. When I signed, I was probably a little bit. There was some matchups. I'm like, ooh, maybe I'm not ready for that yet.
Mm-hmm.
Still a bit green. Still a bit,
Yeah.
With the levels up in between the fights and like I say, being in camp all year, it's I've made those sort of improvements between every fight.
Yeah. Do you feel like with each fight you've become a better fighter every time?
Yeah, definitely. Like you learn from your mistakes, but also you learn from your camps and the training we do every day. So.
We had a couple of questions sent in, and this guy he sends in the same sort of questions because I think he likes to hear the different fighters' opinions. The first one he sent in was, if you could fight any featherweight, past or present, who would you choose?
Oh, who would I choose?
It's a tough one.
I've always said whenever anyone asks this question, whoever's got the belt is what I want. So yeah, there's always. I remember it used to be Aldo, and I was always thinking.
Yeah.
But whoever's got the belt is what I want.
It's a good answer, that, isn't it? Also, we had Linton Vassell, Bellator fighter, last week, and we put this question to him: was if he thought that fighters have to go to the UFC to be considered among the best in the world. Or can you establish yourself as the best in the world from a Bellator or a Cage Warriors or wherever it may be? What do you think about that? Do you think that really you need to go to the UFC to become or to be counted as the very best in the world?
Well, I train with some guys that aren't in the UFC and they're absolute killers, and so like they're nightmare rounds and it's hell. And I know it's different in the gym for the fight, but I mean. I'd consider some of those guys the best in the world, and they're not.
Yeah.
UFC. But also, there's different circumstances. You know, guys are good enough, and maybe they don't get the fights, or they haven't got the opportunity to get in, or they haven't, management or whatever reason, they haven't got attention. They just haven't got their shot. So, not necessarily. I don't think so.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think maybe from the outside looking in, people assume like because UFC is the biggest company in the world, that automatically if you don't make it to the UFC or you don't go to the UFC, then you're not the best in the world. But I think that's probably a false narrative in terms of when you really look at it, because like you say, there's some absolute killers all over the place who aren't in the UFC, and it can be down to opportunity or just having an injury at the wrong time, and things can change quickly. This will be an interesting one. This one was from JD. He said, in your opinion, who do you think will be the next British champion in the UFC?
Oh, that's a hard one. I don't know. I mean, Darren Till looks like a good sort of path, because obviously he's got all the noise and all that, and there's in the middleweight, the top sort of there's a lot of striking matchups that obviously favour him. I don't know. I really don't know. Leon.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you've obviously got Darren Till, you've got Leon Edwards, you've got yourself all in the rankings, so they'd all be probably a kind of a natural shout for it. But there's a lot of unbelievable talent.
There's so much.
Just starting their UFC careers and in Cage Warriors or Bellator. It's fascinating watching the British fighters come through at the moment. I don't know how much you keep up to date with Cage Warriors and stuff like that, but obviously it does seem like over the next few years we could see a bit of a British invasion on the MMA scene in terms of the very top.
Definitely. Actually, you know what? I'm going to put my answer. Corey McKenna, I'm going to say she's going to be champion, the next British champion.
Indeed.
That's what I'm going to say. Even though she says she's Welsh and she's English, but yeah. I get it. She's doing it for publicity, whatever.
Interesting. You should mention Corey McKenna, because next week on the show we have Corey McKenna joining us, which is a nice little link. Nicely done, Arnold. I like that. Set me up nicely. But we're really looking forward to that. As a Welshman myself as well, I enjoy getting these Welsh fighters on.
She ain't
but really looking
to.
forward to her. Nah, she's Welsh as they come. She is Welsh as they come. Another thing I wanted to sort of pick your brains on, because I'm kind of genuinely interested what the current fighters think of it, is kind of like these celebrity fights or the YouTuber fights more than anything. It's not even celebrities, it's like Jake Paul, and you've got Jake Paul kind of saying stuff about Conor McGregor's wife to try and get his attention, and you've got Ben Askren is fighting, I think he's fighting Jake Paul in a boxing bout in a couple of weeks or a month or so. As a fighter, what's your views on that? Because for me, I'm looking at that and I just think I said this to you, Danny, a couple of weeks ago. I think Conor McGregor eventually will take if Jake Paul keeps beating people in boxing, eventually Conor McGregor will take the fight, simply because it's an easy 100 million for him. And that sounds ridiculous, but why wouldn't you? I guess is the question. But as a fighter, how do you feel when you're seeing kind of these guys calling out various fighters after a couple of boxing matches?
Yeah, it's well, when he's saying stuff about his wife and that, it's a bit far, and it's a bit much.
Yeah, it's no need.
I'm all for a bit of banter and pushing a fight and having making some money. I get it. It's entertainment at the end of the day, and it's like wrestling, but we really do get hurt. But so it is entertainment, and I get it. And you know what, if you're gonna offer me that's a ridiculous amount of money to fight some celebrity. I'm fighting that celebrity for tomorrow. But yeah, so like, you can't blame him. Like Ben Askren is probably going to make the biggest payday of his career. Is that right? That's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. So, and I mean, hopefully he can win. But
it's a fascinating one, that is. It's a weird. Ben Askren's like a bit of a fascinating one because obviously, before he came into the UFC, he was incredible. He really looked like he could go far in the UFC, and then he came in, and he just didn't quite work out for him. Obviously, he got knocked out in the one fight, and he never quite recovered from that. Really, he just didn't go for him, and then all of a sudden now, because he's got plenty to say for himself, and Jake Paul is looking for that big MMA name, and someone he can fight, and hopefully from his point of view beat, so then he can move on to that sort of super fight where he's going to make hundreds of millions. But from Ben Askren's point of view, like you say, like he retired, and then he's going to get his biggest payday of his career from fighting a YouTuber in a boxing bout.
That's it.
It's weird, isn't it? Because he's not even known for his striking either. You know what I mean? It's like strange.
Yeah.
How do you see that going?
Oh, honestly, I don't know. I don't know if he can win it, and I hope he does. But his hands are too great, yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
It's a little worrying, isn't it? I'm a little bit worried about it. 'Cause, it's going to make him even more vocal if he thinks someone like Ben. And Ben's, he's just not known for his striking at all. Worrying.
Jake Paul's got youth on his side, and he's had, I think, 3 or 4 boxing matches already.
Yeah.
So I know it's not like a massive long career of boxing, but he's got a bit of it behind him. He's got some rounds behind him.
Yeah.
So you do worry.
Someone put a good point. Like maybe Askren's just gonna clinch him, wear him down, keep doing that. Maybe. Be interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. People are buying, going to watch it. There's no matter how much Jake Paul doesn't interest me, and he irks me a bit in some of the stuff he's said and done. I'm just going to watch it. So I guess it is what it is. It's very strange. Not quite sure where it's going to go. In terms of your kind of training partners and stuff like that, Arnold, who should we look out for over the next sort of year or so? Who you think could make a statement?
Who can make a statement? There's Ayman Zahabi's fighting in 10 days? He's fighting on the 20th, I think. He's fighting on the. So obviously look out for him. He's been working hard for a long time, and he's an absolute killer. And 2 other guys, my main training partners, there's Mandel Noah. He's one guy on Bellator. He's an absolute monster. He's a scary guy to spar with, especially when he's you're sparring and you hear the guy next to you sort of go down gurgling because he's been dropped with a body shot or something. I'm going with him next. And there's Louis Sanadakis. There's these are my main. They're like my main training partners. These guys have really helped me sort of come on leaps and bounds. So when I first come to TriStar, I think Ayman had just signed with the UFC as well, and I didn't really know these guys as well. So I was like, in your head, you're a little bit like, oh, well, they're not in the UFC, so they're probably they just killed me everywhere, and they still do. So.
It's good. That's got to be good for your training, though. Anyway, go on, Dan.
Yeah, and with different opponents and that, what would not to give away anything regards on what you think of your level in any particular area, but would you say it's more scary to face someone that's known as a devastating striker or a super sharp submission guy? Is there a particular opponent which you would say it gives you more anxiety? I mean, because obviously the submission side of things, you're not necessarily getting hurt. It's a little bit of a choice, isn't it, to let an armbar go further than it should? Yeah. But regards someone punching, kicking, and kneeing you. That's brings a whole different type of fear into the equation. Have you got a preference of who you like to face stylistically?
My style is more of a striking style and all that, but like a counter wrestling striking style is pretty much what. But I'm pretty comfortable on the floor. I train with these black belt guys all day, every day, and I'm not unaware of the subs. I'm not like a green guy in the thing, but I think that when them guys that have got that sort of one punch knockout power is probably way scarier than that, because technically you don't even have to be good to have power. Some guys have they got poor skill, but they've got a lot of power. I remember when I used to coach people back in the day, like I used to coach people. They couldn't punch, but I mean they hit hard, but they didn't know how to do it, but they were doing it, and it's like, geez, this guy.
Sure. Yeah. And I'm curious to know as well. Out of all these wins that you've had, which one's your most notable? The one that you were so happy to get. What's the one that meant the most to you?
I think Melendez has to be. Gilbert Melendez has to be. Just because he's such a big name, and it was kind of in my head. It was the big show. It was on John Jones on the card, so I was like, it was the international fight week, the big pay per view, the big stage. Obviously, it's not for me, but I was on it. I was always wondering how I would handle that big name with that big stage, and it was as I hoped, my best sort of performance, most relaxed, most calm.
Right.
It was everything I wanted.
Yeah, he's done big things in MMA throughout his career. I'm not too sure whether he's active anymore. Is he officially?
I think he retired. Yeah.
I did. Yeah. I wasn't too sure, but yeah, he's had a fantastic career.
Yeah.
Obviously he's been exposed to training with some really, really top guys. I mean, when I was looking through the list of people that you fought, that was one that stood out for me. I was like, wow, that guy's got some status about him, and that must have been quite something. But people, note different wins of being influential on their careers more than others, not just because they're not such a big name, but yeah, I mean, what an amazing win to be able to say you beat some guy like that, and that's quite incredible.
That's it. I was looking across the cage. I remember he had Nate Diaz stood, he wasn't in his corner, but he stood there. He was talking to, shouting stuff to him, and I see Nate Diaz, and I'm like, oh, these guys are, these are the guys. These are the guys you want to be beating. So, yeah, I was glad I handled it well.
in terms of finishing a fight, if you could choose how you finish a fight, would you rather out technique someone for 3 rounds, 5 rounds and win via unanimous decision comfortably? Would you rather submit them? Would you rather TKO them, knock them out? What would be your preference if you could choose?
If you watch my fights, you think I'm a liar, but I'd rather a knockout any day. I'd rather go out and knock someone out, but if you watch the fights, it looks like I'd rather go to the decision and out technique guys. But yeah, I'm looking for it.
Yeah, I always wonder what's more satisfying for a fighter. If they'd if it's more satisfying to tap someone out and have them give up, or to to knock them out, or just to completely prove that you're superior technically via a decision. It's an interesting one for sure. Just to finish us off, Arnold, what I'd like to do is get your predictions for some of the fights for UFC next week, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So, let me get that. So, obviously, you've got the main event, and Danny, I'll get yours as well, mate, while we're here. Then it's, we've got the main event, which is Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. Arnold, how do you see that one going?
I just think not Burns. I think Usman's going to just do what he does. He's going to put the pace on him. I know they're both quite moulded into the similar sort of style. I mean, high pressure guys, high pace. They just keep sort of going. They're in your face. I just think Usman's going to be better at that. He's bigger, stronger. He's just going to be much better at it.
Yeah, they're both beasts, and they Kamaru Usman's just looked on another level of who have you got in that, Dan?
Yeah, I think it's hard to go against Usman, really. I think the thing that's impressed me with Usman is obviously we know his wrestling's really, really good. His clinch game's really, really good to smother people. But the fact that he's proved that he's got pretty accomplished hands now as well to go alongside with that wrestling style that he has. Burns is more the guy who obviously delivers a lot of power into his punches. He's obviously got that really gifted ground game, but this is MMA. And I just feel like Usman's got that superiority in the wrestling and the clinch to be able to steer where that fight goes at any given time to keep him out of the fire of Burns's forward sort of style. So I can't bet against Usman with this one. I mean, Gilbert Burns has looked really, really amazing of late. He has looked really, really good and definitely deserves to be in there with him. And, it only takes one thing to catch Usman and he's going to get the win. But I think if they fight 10 times, I would say Usman's going to win 8 of those at this given time.
Yeah, it's going to be like Usman's looked so good in the last sort of year or two, so it'll be very interesting. Gilbert Burns deserves his shot, but I think Usman is probably going to take it, but it'll be interesting nonetheless. Yeah. The co-main event is a women's flyweight bout between Macy Barber and Alexa Grasso. Arnold, what you got there?
I don't know, Grasso. To be honest, I've seen them fight a little bit. I haven't seen too much of Macy Barber, to be honest, but I've seen Grasso. She looked good, so just for that reason, I'm going to go with her.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close one, but I'd go with Grasso as well. Danny, who you got there?
Well, if you're both going with Grasso, I'm going to go with Barber because she has only had the one loss against her name so far. So and she's coming at the rank. The thing is that sometimes I find that I go with people on their last performances, and which is obviously a good way of going about it. But with some of these fighters that are sort of like had under 10 fights, they keep on coming back into their next fight with a new skill set, and you're seeing grapplers suddenly becoming, hitting that point where they're actually comfortable to be striking with people known to be good strikers, and not even attempting to get it to the ground, even though they're known as grapplers. So, I'm going to say because Barber's making big increments in our game, I expect to see that continuing improvement. So I'm going to go with Barber on this one.
Good shout. Next up, middleweight bout between Kelvin Gastelum and Ian Heinch. Apologise if I pronounced his name wrong. Arnold, you got there?
Heinisch.
I'll go with Kelvin. Kelvin, I always like Kelvin, the way he fights. Just he's a bit of a beast, isn't he? Like always sort of, he's got great boxing, good hands, good power, and he's pretty solid.
It's a big fight for Ian Heinisch because Kelvin Gastelum is he's a massive name. He's obviously ranked a bit higher, so it's a big ask. But I think they've made that bout for a reason, and I think I'm going to go with Ian Heinch for that one. What you got, Dan?
Yeah, I'm going to go Heinisch for this one. Gastelum is an absolute beast. I love the way he fights, but he struggled of late. He just has struggled of late. If he brings his top game like we've seen before in the past, he can look really, really good. But I just feel like he's just lost a little bit of his momentum and rhythm lately. I always think as well with him that if he just, addressed his strength and conditioning and his dietary, his lifestyle, I guess we could say, I'm sure this guy could fight in a lighter weight division. He's not particularly big at the weight, and that always makes it look like always hard matchups for him. He's literally always given away height and natural size and athleticism to so many people, and I just think with the skill set of these UFC fighters these days, you can't really go giving away anything like that,
especially in that middleweight division.
So to me, I'm going to stick with Ian on this one.
Okay, good shot. And then lastly, we've got a bantamweight bout between Pedro Munez and Jimmy Rivera. Who you got in that one, Arnold? That is a close one to call for me.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I'll go with Pedro Munez. I just like the way he fights it again. Same thing. I just like his style. He's always sort of impressive. He looks good. Jimmy Rivera. It's a bit. I see him getting lit up by Munez, to be honest.
What about you, Dan?
Yeah, this one's going to be really hard to call. I'm going to go Munez as well, but this is very, very hard to know who's going to win. I'm just going to enjoy watching this one. I think it's a great matchup. I really do. But I'm going to go Munez as well with this one.
Munez really needs the victory as well because obviously he lost to Aljamain Sterling, then he lost to Frankie Edgar, which I think maybe people didn't expect.
Yeah.
And he's coming off a 2-fight losing streak. So it'll be interesting. I'm going to go with Jimmy Rivera. Why not? So yeah, that'll be a very, very interesting fight. It's going to be a good card actually next week. Quite looking forward to that one. Okay. Danny, is there anything else you want to put to Arnold before we release him?
Yeah. Okay. So we've already touched on the inactivity of fights. What would you suggest for you would be the ultimate amount of times you would fight in a year if you get given the option to?
Yeah. I think four is perfect. I mean, three at this level is realistic to break the year down into thirds, but yeah, 4 is the perfect number. But yeah. Yeah,
because there's been a few times in my career that I'd have 4 or 5 fights in a year, and doing BJJ tournaments as well. And I remember when I did that 5 fights in 1 year, that made me feel like I almost needed a break afterwards. As much as I loved it as a lifestyle, it really felt a bit like I was having a little bit too much of it, I suppose you would say. I suppose it's like going to the cinema every week end. After a while, it's not going to seem special. It definitely helped in terms of feeling relaxed and not being so nervous. But yeah, and I just wondered how many times, because it does seem, doesn't it, when people go into UFC, it does drop down to 2 or 3 times a year.
Yeah. I think I had 6 once in the space of 12 months, and it was
wow.
Like you said, it was perfect. But like, you didn't get the nerves, you got the experience, you're out there fighting. But now it's like the level is a bit different. You need to prepare for everyone a bit. You need a specific camp, and then obviously I'm cutting more weight than I was back then, and things like that. So you don't want to do too many weight cuts in a year.
Yeah.
So yeah, 3 or 4 is the perfect sort of number, I think.
Yeah.
Cracking. Arnold, thank you so much for joining us, mate. Really appreciate your time and chatting to you. It's been a lot of fun, and you're obviously very welcome back anytime at all, whenever you got the time and fancy it. And maybe you can come back and chat to us after your next fight, which hopefully will be in April, shall we say?
Definitely.
But cheers, mate. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, mate. Thanks, guys.
Good luck.
Thanks, mate. Good
man. Really enjoyed that. Another top level guest, my friend. Oh, he's back. Yeah, he's
very calm, guest, cool character. Very calm, cool character.
Yeah, I just really enjoyed that, mate. Just chatting to it, and like I said, it's good to get. We've had such a range of like top level fighters at the moment, just coming on the show, having a chat about how they do things, what they're up to, then their next fights, whatever it may be. Yeah, and that continues next week, mate. When we got Corey McKenna coming on next week, fresh off a very impressive UFC debut. I believe it's the first female fighter we've had on the show as well. So that would be
that's fantastic.
Good thing to break. And then we got all sorts of names lined up in the future, from coaches, commentators, fighters. It's going to be a lot of fun and a very interesting year coming up. But we've got some stuff to talk about, mate, from last night. I think we'll start with Paige Van Zandt made a bare knuckle boxing debut. Did it go to plan?
Well, no, I'm sure our plan was to win. We got asked to cover Josh Barnett when he fought a bare knuckle fight. And he used his clinch to good effect to nullify the outward skill of a predominant boxer, basically, and done really, really well with it. Van Zandt, although you would surmise that she would be more dominant in the clinch, it was actually causing her trouble being in the clinch. She was getting outworked, so she was holding that single tie hold, or a plum guard, I think some people call it. And when you're doing that, when you're holding onto the head, obviously you're nullifying any of their footwork to break free, but you got to go busy in with the uppercuts and in tight hooks, and you hit the body hard. She wasn't doing any of that, but Hart was really laying into Van Zandt's body. And then, of course,
big shots to the body.
Yeah, big shots. And Van Zandt just didn't respond with it. She didn't try to match her pace for pace inside that clinch by hitting with her free arm. And the other issue she had, that when it went on the outside, she was giving away a little bit of height and a little bit of length. And so she was sort of like having to push close. She always looked at her best when she was throwing, vibrant combinations, but they were just too few and far between. I felt like she was just getting slightly outpointed because of those two ranges, the long and the in close range. She did look great coming forward. When she did come forward, she just did not do that enough. When she was on the outside, she sort of like waited on the outside 20 seconds too long each time.
Yeah, I felt like Britain Hart really dominated the fight. Her body shots were incredible. And she hit Paige with a few good shots. But there was a point, I think it was around 20 seconds or so into the fourth round, where Paige was on the outside and Britain Hart sort of came forward, and all of a sudden Paige just dropped her shoulder and she nailed her with a really big right hand.
Yeah.
But she didn't follow it up. And it looked like I don't think it shook Hart, but it definitely hurt. And I was waiting for when she hit it, I was waiting for it to then come forward and really put some pressure on her, and it just never came. And I don't know whether that was because of the body work earlier in the fight had made her a bit lethargic. But for me, if you're in a bare knuckle fight, obviously, look, I know even less about bare knuckle fighting than I do about MMA, but in terms of, for me, I just think if you in a bare knuckle boxing bout, when you get a good shot in, you want to follow it up and put some pressure on to see if you can finish that fight. That's the point, isn't it? Like with the bare knuckle boxing, is that the strikes can end fights. Do you think, you mentioned that she struggled a bit within the clinch, do you think that's because in her training she focused so much on the striking aspect of it because it's bare knuckle boxing that she kind of didn't maybe put as much work in with the clinch, or do you think it was just the other girl was better at it?
Yeah, no, I think the only thing I could think of is, she's predominantly been training MMA, and when you clinch up, although as MMAs we look to throw our strikes, we're having to deal with someone else potentially trying to take the advantage position-wise and put you against the fence and try what the takedown on you as well. So we're having to think of so many other things. So we can't, as MMAs, think that we can just clinch and just start throwing close boxing shots. So I just think the pace is just different. The rounds are shorter. The pace is going to be quicker because you've got to fit so much more work rate in, and you've only got your hands to throw. So the whole pace is different, and I feel like Van Zandt was perhaps a little bit unaccustomed to that. And regards you saying that she landed a big shot, you're absolutely right, she did. But because this is a different pace fight, it must have felt a little bit more rushy for her. So, and a different ground, a crowd, a different pace, a totally different striking sport in many aspects. So it must have felt so different. And this is bare knuckle. Any of the shots are going to be hugely consequential to what might happen in regards to cuts and getting knocked out. It's a real brutal format, and so perhaps she was just unaware of how good a shot it was. I imagine when you're hitting anyone with a next to bare fist, they feel like they're good shots going in each time. I just think that, the nerves would have been a little higher. I think the experience was a little bit more fresh. And so you become a little bit more disconnected, just sort of like just in a fight. But I thought she performed very, very good. Look, this was never a fight that she was getting outclassed in every sense. She was definitely in there and keeping herself relevant at all times. I just think she's got to learn to deal with the different pace, the shorter rounds, and deal with that clinch a little bit more differently. She's going to be a work in progress for her first few fights. I think she'll develop to come good. Why not? She just got to get used to a different sport.
It's different. Just a little shout out as well on the same card. UFC veteran Chris LeBen. He won by a KO, which was in his retirement fight. So his combat sports career is over. Brutal knockout as well. Just saw.
Right.
But shout out to UFC veteran Chris LeBen, who finished his fighting career last night. Finished with a win as well, which is always, I think, the way a fighter would like to go out, my friend, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely so.
So we had the UFC Vegas card last night. What do you think of the card just overall?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed watching this. I really love watching Clay Weeder fight, so that was really good to see him. And I think that was a really interesting matchup, actually, to fight Michael Johnson. That was great. Pereira and Darius, what a fight. I think that was a great scrap. There's some good ones. Some fast knockouts as well. Submission attempts. There was good groundwork. It was a good show overall. I really enjoyed it.
I wanted to make mention. I don't know if you've seen it because I didn't notice it until when we started recording. Molly McCann fought on the prelims and she lost again, which is so disappointing for her and for us British fans, because she had that fight, didn't she, a couple of years ago, and I can't forget who it was against, but she really, really went to war with someone.
Yeah,
I think she might have lost it on a decision, but like she became a star in losing, and then since then it hasn't quite gone to plan for her. So yeah, perhaps we could we'll go into a bit more detail on Molly next week. Obviously,
sure.
As well, we'll have a female fighter as a guest. So I'd be interested to get Corey's kind of opinion on what's going wrong for Molly McCann perhaps at the moment, because, like I say, she looked poised to really, I don't know what the word is, but like really take her UFC career to the next level. And then it hasn't quite worked out for her. I was just trying to have a look at who that fight was against, where she faced Ariane Lipsky in 2019 on the Moisiano Korean Zombie card, and she won via unanimous decision, and she signed a 4-year contract with the UFC after that fight. And she'd won a previous fight versus Priscilla Cachiera. And that's right. So she fought on the. She made a UFC debut in 2018 against Gillian Robertson on the Thompson versus Darren Till card. She lost via a rear naked choke, but she did very well, and she got another fight after that versus Priscilla Cachiera, which she won by unanimous decision. Then she had that great fight with Lipsky and won by unanimous decision again. Got a 4-fight contract, and then she kind of followed that up with a win, and then it's kind of not gone to plan the last couple of fights. She lost via unanimous decision to Ashley Evans Smith, and then again she's lost via unanimous decision to Lara Propico. So, what started out as a very promising UFC career, I'm referring to. She started off with some wins. Last 2 fights haven't gone to plan, but I think there's a 2-fight loss streak is not the end of the world. There's ways back, particularly at her age.
Absolutely, I don't think we should be writing her off by any stretch. This is the UFC after all. Okay, so she is going to be under a little bit more pressure to perform. She doesn't want to be losing 3 in a row, but she's had her successes as well. And each of these fights, wins and losses, she is going to be making improvements, and she's gaining experience. And I'm sure we're going to see her back in winning ways. 2 fights losing, that's going to happen to most people in their careers, and most people recover from that. It's normally an age thing that normally sees the demise of most athletes. So I think she's going to be back, and I think she's going to be fine. I just hope she gets something, reasonably soon. So this doesn't dwell too long on her mind that she's lost 2 in a row.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, her career record is 10-4, which is that is not a terrible record. She wins more than she loses. UFC record is now 3-3, which is obviously that's more of a worry when you look at it from the way UFC are going to look at it. But it seems like she's got still 2 fights on her contract anyway. So, if she wins those 2 fights,
Yeah, look, she's going to she's going to win her next two, and then she'll be 5-3, and that's not a bad record. When when you're young as she is, they will take that into account. She's going to be fine. She's going to.
Yeah, absolutely. She's
going to come back
she's
from
30,
this.
and that's prime for a fighter these days. And I think the UFC is looking for female fighters to really go and make a statement. So, like you say, if she can win those 2 fights left in her contract.
Exactly. I think the women's divisions they're doing nothing but expanding, and you're having fresh talent coming in, and so she'll be getting herself classed as being quite experienced now. So, as long as she's getting reasonable matchups and that, there's no reason why she can't rack up another couple of wins and get herself straight back on track and straight back up there in the mix. She just has to take a deep breath, have a look and be honest with herself about what she feels has gone wrong, and like we keep on saying, and we don't like to keep on probing about it, but times are slightly different. Although we're getting kind of used to it now and we're finding our ways around it within the eyes of the law, and to be training in a safe way, that may well have knocked her rhythm off a little bit. That may have been consequential to these results. We don't really know unless we ask her herself, but I don't think she's made any statements, has she, that we know of?
No, I don't think so.
That would be very telling. Perhaps if we could hear something from her, but yeah, like I say, I feel very, very confident she's going to come back from this, and things are going to get back on track with her.
Yeah, me too. So with the UFC main card, Danilo Marquez versus Mike Rodriguez was moved off the prelims and onto the main card due to the time constraints. This is the second event in a row where they've done that. I don't know whether it's because 4 of the fights on the prelims went to a decision, so they just ran out of time. I don't know
possibly,
what it is,
sir.
but
I didn't actually know that happened.
No, that's all right. So that one, Danilo Marquez defeated Mike Rodriguez via a rear naked choke. It was a good little fight. Rodriguez looked relatively good, I think. It was, it wasn't quite as good as some of the fights later on in the card, but it was enjoyable. It was a very good performance by both men, but ultimately, ultimately Danilo Marquez got the victory with the rear naked choke. And
I've got it playing now. I've got it playing now, and it looks like he's not mucking about. He's just getting close to Rodriguez, and he's smothering him against the fence, getting him down. It just looked like he wanted a grapple fest, and he's, from the look of the result, he's obviously got his way with that.
Yes, indeed. He was looking for that. He was looking for a submission, I think, from quite an early point, and he got it in the end. So next up was Beneil Dariush versus Diego Ferreira, with Dariush picking up the victory via a split decision. This was the one I said to you I thought was a bit of a sleeper for match of the evening. Tell us, did it disappoint?
No, I actually really enjoyed this. Dariush went for the kill from the get-go. He was just really chasing Ferreira down. Normally Dariush doesn't look as athletic as some other people. Some other people are really rich, really quite muscled, but he actually looked like the bigger man, which surprised me. And in my mind before this fight happened, I was thinking Ferreira was going to be the bigger physical guy, but Darius actually looked the bigger man, although not as athletic as Ferreira. But Darius absolutely put his physicality on him. He kept pressing him against the fence. We saw some nice takedowns. We saw some great scramble-ups. Ferreira said that he was going to use his submissions to get himself up off the back and not necessarily now the submission itself. And he did put that into effect. Although it did consequentially, though, mean that he was getting scored upon a lot with the takedowns and, threw away that first round with the incredible activity of Dariush. Dariush did get himself rocked, though, didn't he, a couple of times? He was just perhaps opening up a little bit too much and was getting himself caught and rocked. He sort of had a fantastic first round and then sort of had it shadowed a little bit at the end when he was don't know if it was feeling the fatigue and the punch affected him in that way. But yeah, he got lumped up with some nasty shots and a teep to the face as well. Do you remember the teep to the face?
Yeah, oh yeah. That looked nasty, nasty.
I just thought it was a great pace fight. It was a fight that, you know, we can sometimes think that when two people are just striking and they rack up incredible numbers with punches, kicks and knees being thrown, this was one of those paces that it was down on the ground and there were some submission attempts to create the scramble back up to the feet. There was obviously a lot of strikes being thrown at all times. I don't know, to me, this was a fight that was super interesting for me. I loved all the transitions. It was up and then it was down, but certainly when it was up, they didn't come off the pace. And you could partly, you know, give that erratic and fast pace to the fact that Darius just did not stop walking forward. It was great to see. Darius has really been improving fight after fight, hasn't he, of late? And you can almost see that ooze of confidence in those results that he has been getting in his performance. He just took it to Ferreira. I'm quite surprised that you think it was a snooze fest. I mean, maybe because it was a practice. Oh, okay.
I enjoyed it. I was asking you if it disappointed. I was just,
right, I see.
Setting you up. No, I enjoyed it. There was a point in the first round where Daniil Baruch almost had a mount, and all of a sudden Ferreira just grabbed his leg and almost pulled him into like almost the splits. And before he knew it, Darush was on top of him, but Ferreira was hitting him with like those sort of elbows, slicing elbows right down his face. So even though Darush had the more dominant position, he was on top of him almost in mount. Ferreira was still able to nail some real nice elbows from the bottom. And they kind of exchanged grappling around, and it was just non-stop, even whether it was on the feet and they were just going for strikes non-stop, or whether they were on the floor and exchanging grappling transitions. I thought what Ferreira did quite well though, mate, as well, is when he was moving forward, he was nailing him with like short hooks almost, like really short hooks as Darush was coming in. And I was almost, after the first round, I was thinking, God, if he nails one of them plumb, he might catch him. But Darush was just non-stop.
Yeah, he was. He really, really did impress me. But likewise, I am really impressed with Ferreira, because in that third round, he really made the adjustments. And, you know, that was partly due to, you know, his corner, you know, wanting him to not sit down on his shot so much and not hunt for that knockout and play sort of like hit and move. And it really worked well to avoiding being taken down as much. And indeed, you know, he had some time on top in that third round, and it was looking good for him, but he sort of figured out Darius's game a little too late in the fight, unfortunately. Maybe if this was going to be a 5-round fight, that would have been a different result, but the result is what it is, and Darius is on a roll now, and he's won a few in a row now, hasn't he? He's got to be moving right up there.
Did you have Darush winning this? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a good call. Yeah, he just worked so hard. He absolutely deserves that result.
Were you surprised it was a split decision and not like a unanimous?
A little bit, yeah, because I felt that he won those first 2 rounds, you know, with the takedowns and that forward-going pace. I felt that he would won it. Yeah, clearly 2 rounds to 1. I think third round I would have definitely give to Ferreira, but the first 2 were definitely in Darush's favour to me.
He's on a 6-fight win streak.
Yeah, I mean that's quite something. And to me, like I say, he's, you know, not to say, you know, the way you look physically is going to decide whether you you know, are going to be an effective fighter or not. No, that's never the case. But he sometimes doesn't look as strong or as athletic, yet he just seems to get the job done. He looks like the bully in there, and his striking is definitely looking more and more dangerous. He's looking more tidy with his striking. Sometimes he looked a little bit, you know, uncouth coming forward, I suppose. Yeah. But he's uncouth or not, you know, he's effective. And getting confident, and you're seeing it. Yeah. I'm kind of excited now. I think he could be making some serious noise now. What's his rank at the moment?
They were 9 and 10 beforehand.
Right. So he's really getting up there now. Yeah, so he'll be sort of like 7 or 8 now. And yeah, he's getting himself into real relevancy in that division now.
Absolutely, mate. It's going to be fascinating to see where he goes next. Next up was Alexandra Pantoja versus Manuel Cape, with Pantoja getting the unanimous decision victory. What do you make of this one?
Yeah, again, this was a really good and interesting little match. Pantoja looked really, really good in the first round. Super, super sharp. And Cape was a little bit passive. Very, very good defensively, but wasn't really given anything of offense too much. You started getting a sense that he could do something with his wrestling. He was picking up on that single leg and going outside high with it, and really putting Panjara off balance. And I just wished he chased down that clinch game a little bit more. When I say clinch, not upper body clinch, going in on those legs, it looked like he was going to be more successful with it. Cape just didn't have enough urgency about his game. It was like he just wasn't quite urgent enough to try and take those rounds. He was keeping himself out of mischief, out of trouble, trying to select the perfect sort of shots and combinations. But sometimes you just got to let it go a little bit more. And when he was letting it go, he was looking really, really good. But just allowed Panjara to break away on the scorecard in each of those rounds, unfortunately. Panjara didn't look so comfortable going back, and Cape looked like he had it all figured out and it was going to start changing direction, but he just didn't stay in forward motion long enough. He would back off. He was sort of like enjoying himself almost a little bit too much out there, showboated with his footwork on numerous occasions. So maybe he was feeling like the fight was going a different direction to the way the judges were seeing it. I mean, it was no whitewash by any stretch, but
but you look a bit silly, don't you, if you start showboating and then you lose?
Yeah, showboating, and you're definitely not winning convincingly in any way.
No.
Panjara looked good. He looked very businesslike. He looked like he was not mucking about in there. He was in there to win. And again, he was not particularly hunting for a submission or a knockout, and he just wanted to get ahead and stay ahead, and he certainly did enough to do that. Yeah, but I think we're going to see more of Cape, as long as his fight team that are behind him, make him aware of where he went wrong with this. Because there was nothing wrong technically. It's just strategically of knowing where you are in that fight that I think let him down. I think maybe he felt it was closer, or maybe he thought he was ahead.
By his reaction after the fight, he seemed to think that he had won, didn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which
but
was strange to me, because I felt
who
like
knows?
It was clear.
I would like to know what they were saying to him in the corner. I like to think that they were saying, "Hey, you come on, you got to get on your bike and pedal a little bit here," because he did pick up the pace. But he always had the advantage when he shot in, and it wasn't like it was hard work or highly physical fight for him to do so. So I don't know. There was no real excuse not to keep on pushing it there, in my mind. Yeah, so a little bit disappointed for him in that, but if he makes the appropriate changes, he could be definitely something to look out for in the UFC. But got to put those wrongs right first of all.
Absolutely, mate. It was a very, very interesting fight, though, enjoyable. Clay Guida defeated Michael Johnson by unanimous decision. Another decision, Michael Johnson back in the fold, and he was back with a loss, unfortunately for him.
Yeah,
But,
Michael Johnson is clearly a very, very good striker. He can wrestle a little bit. He's not a complete bum in the wrestling, but his ground game is always lacking. If he gets taken down, all he does is look to get up, and he's not the greatest at it. Clay Guida is not the biggest of dudes, but he is quite a smothering fighter. I think the only reason you saw Michael Johnson get up off the mat as much as he did when he got grounded was because he has a little bit of athleticism and size in combination over Clay Guida. But I've always loved watching Clay fight. I love his style, but he actually really surprised me in the first round with his hands. I think he actually outstruck Johnson in the first round.
So.
He was rocking him a couple of times, punched him, and it looked like he got him right in the eyeball. Clay, I think it was Clay who got cut, wasn't it? It was him that was bleeding. I'm not too sure what that strike was. I tried to look back to see which one it was that cut him. I'm not too sure. Maybe he had a little bit of a scratch or a little bit of an injury through his training prep that just opened up in there. But yeah, Clay really impressed me with his timing of his strikes, because he doesn't look the crispest striker, does he? But
No.
that's partly because he looks to make people overthrow to get the clinch. So it actually worked really, really well. Clay does what Clay does. He throws hands. He's got a lot of energetic movement, and he gets in on the wrestle, and he just never says never. He goes, if I don't get you down this time, I'll get down the next time. And he keeps pushing. He has belief in his style, and it showed through for him. And he started to, grind through. Johnson did respond, and he did look like he was getting his footwork sorted, didn't he, with his striking? And a couple of times looked like he was beginning to hurt Clay Wheeler, but Clay Wheeler did enough in those first 2 rounds, and come that 3rd round, when Johnson's defence for the shoot was looking better and he was getting his footwork sorted, it's kind of like a little, just too late for him, really.
Yeah.
But I don't know where he goes from here. I don't think he's had great results of his a number of fights now. He's had a fair few losses, I think, now, hasn't he? So
It's difficult. Like with Craig Lido, particularly in the first 2 rounds, I was really impressed with like his head movement. Just he was his movement is real good. It doesn't always look technically perfect, but just he was making himself difficult to hit, and also nailing some nice shots of his own. And like you say, he did enough in those first 2 rounds that the 3rd round Johnson would have needed to finish it. And that was never really in the program.
I'm thinking with the striking, I think if Clay Wheeler was fighting someone else who was orthodox, I think he doesn't look so good. But the fact that opposite stances, when you're opposite stances, that crosshand becomes so much more relevant. And being that he's a puncher into wrestle style MMAist, it just suited him really well. He obviously likes to launch that crosshand, which is more effective against opposite stance. He was getting success with that. We have seen sort of that throughout his fight career, has developed that head kick as well that's caught people out. So everything's off that cross side. I just think it stylistically really suited him for the fact that there was opposite stance on the feet predominantly. Great performance. I mean, Clay Guida's been around a long, long time. He's not the youngest of athletes out there now, but he's getting wins.
Yes, he is indeed. Next up was Corey Sandhagen versus Frankie Edgar, and it didn't last long, 28 seconds. And then most definitely the knockout of the night.
Yeah, it was a great knockout. I mean, Frankie was out on the feet, his body locked up like he was a plank of wood and timber. It fell. It was not nice seeing him get knocked out in that way. I mean, he's completely.
He's been on a bit of a roll as well, Frankie Edgar has, but Sandhagen's a different animal.
Yeah, Edgar's an incredible athlete and always in super fine shape. He's got skills in every area of the highest order, really, really has. And one of the most experienced UFC fighters in history. He really has racked up the time in the cage. The thing is with Edgar, he does sort of like just do the same thing time and time again. He's just so effective so often with it. But I think that this type of knockout, I think Sandhagen had prepped and repped in his training. He knows he's got the height advantage. He's probably got the speed advantage. And he knows Edgar comes in really square, which gives Edgar maximum options to throw, to footwork, to shoot, to sprawl. But in doing that, he does leave himself a little bit vulnerable with those long-rangey, fast reactive strikers like Sandhagen is. What a knockout. It was great. It was precision. Like I say, I really think he's repped this out in training. I think this was in the game plan to throw this type of shot out.
He set it up, though. If you look about 10 seconds before, as Frankie Edgar's circling him, and Frankie Edgar thinks he's in control, he's looking for that, maybe a takedown or something like that, to clinch up. And as he's doing that, Sandhagen finds his distance by just kicking him with a low kick. It's not a low kick designed to create damage. It's a low kick in my opinion, it's a low kick just to measure the distance, just to make sure, get a feel of where he is. Because literally 10 seconds later, as Edgar comes in, he is in the perfect place, knocks him spark out with a flying knee. And I felt like that was really clever because, that low kick was nothing. It wasn't designed to damage his leg. It was just, there you are, I know where you are now. And he just waited for when Edgar would come in.
Yeah, well observed, Si. I'm looking at it back as you say that, and yeah, you're right. It does look like that was nothing more than a rangefinder. When you kick at the lead leg, you've got two choices. You kick through it and displace the leg so that they can't advance forward, or you touch it in there as a little measuring tool, and it looked like it was a little bit of a prep up. Yeah, I really am convinced, and it'd be interesting to see, what statements he makes on whether this is something that he felt was a weakness in Edgar's game regards being their stylistic matchups. But I'm not surprised. I think it was all for Sandhagen to win. I really do.
Yeah, we both said that, didn't we?
Yeah, people in that division now are going to be sitting up and thinking, "Hey, this guy is, he's shining."
The one to beat.
Yeah.
Oh yes. And then the main event was Alistair Overeem versus Alexander Volkov. Wow, I thought Alexander Volkov was real impressive. Yeah.
Volkov's always been, if he's going to lose, it's because he gets taken down, smothered. He doesn't look gracious on the ground. But this guy's a massive, massive dude. He's really, really big. And, Overeem's
not
a big
many
dude.
People do that to Alistair Overeem, do they?
No. Overeem's
beat him down until he gives
big guy.
Gives up, basically.
Yeah, and Volkov made him look very, very average in size there, and average in ability too. Overeem's a world-class striker. He's absolutely world-class, but it looked like he was fragile in there against Volkov. And Volkov just looked so confident. It's like Volkov, I don't know, popped off in a time machine and seen how this fight's already gone down. It didn't look like he doubted himself at all. He was coming forward confident but controlled. His takedown defense was, on point. It did look like just in one point that he began to breathe a little heavy because Overeem was throwing those big overhands from southpaw into a clinch. And it looked like if Overeem just pushed the pace, he may have stopped the effectiveness of Volkov. But
do you think the damage that Volkov had done meant that Overeem didn't have the tank to do that, to capitalise on that? Because I felt like
exactly.
He had just beaten him down. When he gets to the finish, Overeem's on his knees and he's taking a big shot, but it just felt like a culmination of the damage that he had taken, just repeated shots to the head and body from a big heavyweight. You ain't going to be able to do that for long, you. And
No, I mean, we've seen this shelling up of Overeem, and sometimes it served him well when the guy don't carry as much power as someone like Volkov. But when he shelled up, I felt like it was like his force field was dropping below 50% and they began to get through him. And there was one point where his face got hurt, he started to bleed, and then he started looking really, really vulnerable. He started to look real naked out there. And Volkov, rather than sort of jumping on it out of control, he just kept very, very controlled, very, very poised. And there was points, wasn't there, where Overeem was shelling up and Volkov landed a few strikes and then stopped and also was like looking for the clear openings. It just didn't open up and barrage against his shelled up style. He was looking for the openings with every shot that he threw. And Overeem, he's been in many, many wars. I mean, did you have a look at both their fight records? There was well over 100 MMA fights between them. And so there's huge amounts of experience in that cage. Oh. And Overeem just looked like he's had so many battles that he just wasn't willing to push it that hard with that battle. I do feel like he's reached the end of the line for himself as well. I did watch quite an extensive interview with him not that long back, and he says that he feels like he's coming to the last couple of fights and he's just literally taking fight by fight right now. So I think for that fact that he didn't stay in there and grit his teeth a little bit more, but I think even if he did, it would have been a matter of time before Volkov was going to be putting him away. Very, very convinced. I think we're going to see possibly the next heavyweight champion in Volkov.
Interesting. I mean, the heavyweight division is just, it's an odd one, I think, in some ways, because we've talked about sometimes you can get the kind of lumbering slow, boring, maybe looking a bit unfit heavyweight. But in between all those, there's some genuine top athletes like Stipe Miocic, Curtis Blades. I'd regard in that sort of, he's an athlete rather than he doesn't look. He looks in phenomenal shape. He's got skills. Even Ngannou, like, he might not be the best in certain aspects of MMA, but as an athlete, he's in phenomenal shape. He's a very, very good, capable fighter and a good striker. So there's some big names, and let's not forget, John Jones is gonna fight in this division very soon. Could Volkov be the one?
Yeah, he could. I mean, Jones fighting someone like Volkov, it'd be the first time he's given away as much height as that to anyone. He would have to go back to his...
Sorry, mate, to interrupt you. I do think they're going to put Jones against Dos Santos, I've got to be honest. But I'd be very interested to see what Jones would do against such a bigger opponent, because he's not...
Yeah, it would be interesting, because we've seen Jones of late, haven't we, just dominate with his long reach and just do it really methodically. And he doesn't outrun himself. He does just enough to stay ahead all the time. I don't think he'll have that comfort with Volkov. He might have to go back to his old ways. We used to see back in his early career some fantastic wrestling takedowns, really, really good with his leg-on-leg trips, really fast. He might have to go back to that to beat someone of the likes of Volkov and get it to a grounded situation. But, definitely would be one that would interest me watching that one.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'd see the return of those leg kicks, those like straight on leg kicks at the knees.
Oblique kicks.
Try and take out the legs of him, and then, like you say, go to those really fast trips. But it'd be so interesting what they do with John Jones. I'm assuming it's going to be soon, but it's nothing. I don't think there's been any sort of heavy rumours. Like some fights have leaked recently. Like it looks like Arnold's going to fight. I forgot his name. Sadiq, I think it was. But I'm not sure. I just wondered if any rumours. Like, obviously, they're trying to work towards that Adesanya fight. I'm just having a quick look, see if there's any. It doesn't seem as if there's any, although there's a few reports today saying maybe Volkov could be the one for Jones, which, I think that's probably to be expected, because it was a, heavyweight fighter who won last night. Like, you're going to get that. But be interesting who they match Jones up with, because they're not going to start him at the bottom. He's going to face a top 10, top 15 ranked fighter. Yeah. To me, Dos Santos makes probably the most sense to start with. Then maybe you move to like a Volkov, and then you're looking at if he gets past both those guys, then you've got to put it in against one of those, Ngannou or Stipe, or like those top sort of 3 or 4. If Jones gets past Volkov or Dos Santos, you've got Rosenstruck in there, Curtis Blades, Derek Lewis. There's a lot of power in that division. Even if you think like the way I look at it is, I just think John Jones on his day would beat any of those guys in pure MMA. But then I look at Derek Lewis and Curtis Blades and Ngannou, and I just think John Jones at his age now, if someone like Ngannou nails him flush with a big shot, is he going to go down? We saw Conor McGregor for the first time in his career get knocked. Like, that's the first time he's taken a shot and his legs have gone. I know there was damage to the leg, but he looked, for a split second, he looked like he was out. And I wonder whether that's to do with his, he's not old, but he's getting older, your chin gets a bit less.
Yeah, Jones he's not been in those wars, though. He's not been in...
No.
He's kept the miles off his clock somewhat.
He's never taken a lot of damage, have he?
No. So, I mean, in that weight division, any heavyweight can knock out any other heavyweight. That's the way it is. And, of course, there's some that are more relevant to possibly getting the knockout over others. But, yeah, I just think he's just too careful. He's too good with his range for that to happen to him. Although, if one of these shots, do partially get through, how's he going to react to that? Because he hasn't been hurt with a punch, and some of these guys will be able to hurt you, whether you're blocking them or not. And even if your footwork out the way of them, a lot of the power of these shots, they're still going to be consequential and going to make you have to deal with something new. So yeah, that's going to be the thing with Jones. How's he going to be under that pressure with someone that's, could rip your head off? And I don't know. It's going to be great. I just want to see it happen sooner rather than later. I don't want him to be going through big periods of inactivity. I just want to see Jones getting in there, and let's get these matchups happening, man. Let's get it moving.
Yeah, I'd like to think that once they get it going, like I mentioned to Santos and Volkov, if they want to move towards a heavyweight title bout, they need to get him in there fighting these guys. And if he doesn't take any damage, there's no reason why he could do 2 or 3 quick fights. But if he takes damage, then obviously it's going to be. That's why I think they should probably get it going. And obviously they want the Adesanya fight, which will obviously depend on whether he can get past. I forgot his name. Who's Adesanya fighting?
Blachowicz.
Blachowicz. That's no give me.
No, that is not. It's a real tough one. Yeah,
it's going to be interesting. But mate, that's the UFC. Another interesting show, another fun show, mate. Another good guest. Guys, next week we've got Welsh fighter Corey McKenna, UFC female athlete, which I'm really looking forward to having a chat with her, as well as we'll be talking the Usman Gilbert Burns card. So subscribe, youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation. We got all sorts of shows, as well as the Danny Batten Fight shows. And of course you can download the audio versions of the usual podcast platforms. But Danny, been a pleasure, my friend, as ever.
Yes, thank you, Si. And thank you for Arnold for coming on. That was great speaking with him as well. It's been a good weekend of UFC coverage.
Indeed. Another top guest and more to come. But until next week, we'll see ya.
Defending champion, welcome, Danny Batten.
You're listening to Ace Podcast Nation, the hottest new podcast network and YouTube channel in the UK, featuring original series, top guests, expert analysts, and more. Check out facebook.com/AceCast Nation for news on latest guests and shows. Watch every show in full at youtube.com/Ace Podcast Nation.